Every time we come up to holiday season, I'm amazed to find out that there are many, many Americans, including Americans who are very well educated, who don't seem to know a lot about the origins of the Christmas holiday and the Christmas traditions and the very real and profound international role played by the United States of America in shaping this holiday of Christmas today. Why was Christmas a subject of bitter, even bloody controversy for the first 200 years of American history? Why did leaders of several different colonies make determined efforts to ban any observance of Christmas at all? And how did the war between the states and the development of the traditional figure of Santa Claus change one of our great national holidays? What do historians say about the real date in terms of time of year of Christ's birth? This is an opportunity to actually learn and to feel inspired with in-depth answers to these and other rarely asked or answered questions with our special show, The Secret History of the Christmas Holiday. No need for it to be a secret anymore. The Secret History of the Christmas Holiday. It's 3 hours long. Order it at the Medved History Store. Thank you, and may I say it? Merry Christmas.
On a cultural crusade all across America, this is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. And what a great day it is as we honor this great holiday season by taking a very special look at the most influential, the most widely celebrated, the most important holiday on earth, Christmas. And yet so many people don't know about the origins of Christmas, don't know about the controversies surrounding Christmas, bitter controversies here in the early years of the United States, don't know the fact that many of the people who founded this country even opposed the Christmas holiday. People don't know about where some of the symbols, some of the traditions of Christmas time come from. We're going to take a look at all of those questions in this very special broadcast of the Michael Medved Show, The Secret History of the Christmas Holiday. And though everybody likes to think of that history as reaching back into the mists of time, and to the first Christmas that marked the birth of Jesus, the truth of the matter is that there is very, very little agreement on the actual date in which Jesus Christ was born. One of the few things that virtually all scholars seem to agree is that he wasn't born in wintertime. Now, I know that's terrible to say, but it is very important to understand that Christmas is a relatively recent holiday in terms of its universal acceptance. And certainly the way it's celebrated has all come into being relatively recently in the last 1,000 years, and even more recently than that. The early followers of Jesus Christ weren't concerned about marking his birthday, partially because they expected his imminent return. They expected him to come back to earth at any time, so why bother creating a special birthday festival? And one of the earliest and most influential church fathers, the great scholar Origen, who was born about 185 A.D., so he lived, say, 150 years after Jesus, he opposed the entire idea of trying to observe his birthday, because he preached that it would be wrong to honor Christ in the same way that Pharaoh and Herod were honored. Birthdays, he said, were for pagan gods and rulers, not for the Son of God and the Messiah. Therefore, there always was some opposition to honoring Christ's birth. But that didn't prevent early Christian scholars from trying to speculate on when he was born. Clement of Alexandria, who was born about the year 150 A.D., determined that from everything he could gather, Jesus Christ was born on May 20th. Others argued for April 18th, April 19th, or May 28th. The one thing that you'll see that all these dates have in common is springtime, and that makes a great deal of sense, because one of the very few details you'll find in the gospel accounts of the birth of Jesus Christ is that it was at a time when the shepherds were with their flocks in the fields. That could not have been in December. Because what we do know about the traditions of ancient Judea is that at that time it was very common for shepherds to take their flocks indoors, to put the sheep inside so they wouldn't get cold at night starting in November, and they wouldn't bring them out again until March. And even though Bethlehem is in the more southern part of Judea, and it's a little bit less cold, it still doesn't make any sense. It also doesn't make a great deal of sense that during the winter time, the rainy season in Judea, that is the time that Joseph and Mary would make a rather arduous journey all the way from Nazareth down south as far as Bethlehem. So December 25th, probably not. And this has been an item that's been argued about for a very, very long time. It was only beginning in about the year 270 that people began observing a Feast of the Nativity on December 25th. One of the reasons that the early church fathers did that is because it was already a big holiday season. So it would fit if you were going to try to reach out to pagans, if you were going to try to reach out to people who weren't yet Christian, it would fit to try to incorporate a Christian basis for a holiday that already existed. What holiday was it? Well, in Roman times, in particular, it was a big old holiday called Saturnalia, which celebrated all kinds of things, but it was associated with the Titan Saturn, who's also the Greek Titan Kronos, who wasn't such a pleasant guy. He had a very nasty habit of eating his own children, and he eventually was killed by one of his children, Zeus, Jupiter, by being made to eat a rock. But that didn't stop the Romans, of course, from celebrating this guy. And the entire basis for the celebration was associated with the pattern of the sun, because December 25th in the old calendar was the time of winter solstice. That would be a natural time for celebration, because after the days getting shorter and shorter and shorter and having less and less sun, that would be the day that the sun was reborn, that the sun god was reborn even, that all of a sudden after days getting shorter and shorter on December 21st, then the days start getting a little bit longer and a little bit longer. This festival of Saturnalia in ancient Rome was a week, sometimes 2 weeks, of extremely enthusiastic and energetic feasting and drinking, and actually a great deal of the Christian Christmas tradition actually seems to fit very, very well with the observance of Saturnalia. For instance, the Saturnalia was celebrated annually from December 17th to the 23rd, and then later in Roman history it was even extended beyond that. People gave gifts. All courts were closed. Nobody was allowed to be convicted of a crime during that time period. And all men, both slave and free, rich and poor, were considered to be equal for that week. People often did masquerades. They put on masks. They had parties. They had celebrations. And Romans were governed only by the 3 laws of the priest of Cronus during the holiday. That's the priest of Saturn that is being celebrated during Saturnalia. Those 3 laws were, number 1, all businesses shall be closed except bakeries, cookeries, and those which tend to sport and solace and delight. Number 2, anger, resentment, and threats are strictly forbidden. Number 3, no discourse shall be either composed or delivered, except it be witty and lusty, conducing to mirth and jollity. In fact, even the tradition of observing the holiday with greens, with greenery, was part of the Saturnalia tradition in ancient Rome. They would have apparently big banquets where they would bring in the boughs from evergreen trees. Evergreen trees, of course, would commemorate the idea that life goes on, that it was the dead of winter, but the sun was getting reborn and life was reborn. There also was a particular emphasis on holly, which would be given along with gifts The homes would be decorated with evergreen wreaths and garlands, and dolls would be given to children, candles to friends, and fruit symbols representing increase, representing the growth of the sun, would be very common. Now, what's not particularly Christian about this old Roman celebration of Saturnalia is, if you look in the dictionary, it says the festival of Saturn in ancient Rome, beginning on December 17th, and then the secondary meaning is an unrestrained, often licentious celebration, orgy, excess, extravagance. Now, that's not the way that Christians would want to think about Christmas. So how was it that this old Roman celebration of Saturnalia got transformed into the Christian Christmas, a time of holiness, of dedication, a time that didn't represent the rebirth of the sun, but represented the birth of the Son of God? Well, that story gets very complicated and very interesting because it involves another religion, not Roman paganism, but a Persian pagan religion that followed another god, Mithras. And that god, who died to atone for people's sins, was born and worshipped by shepherds on December 25th. And most scholars believe that part of the selection of the date of December 25th by the early church leaders had to do with this Persian god Mithras. Much more on this very special broadcast of the Michael Medved Show, entitled The Secret History of the Christmas Holiday.